Hey, but this is Zaccheus with another live word of the day. And I thank you for tuning in, and I thank those who've been supporting me. And I thank you for coming in for the first time, and thank you as well for taking this time out with me. But on today's episode, I entitled it, Don't Depend on Them. Don't depend on them. And when I say don't depend on them, I mean don't depend on man, but depend on the Lord. Depend on the Lord. Because when you trust in man, and you solely trust in man, they fail you. But when you depend on the Lord, he makes a way out of no way. Well, join me as I dive in deeply and share some stories and share some YouTube clips as well on Don't Depend on Him with Zaccheus with another live word of the day. You see, New York City is a place of benefits, a whole lot of benefits if you're in need, and governmental benefits. That's what I'm talking about. Governmental benefits that can help people that's poor and they're making less than 30,000 a year, or they're making 30,000 or less, on anything under 50,000. You should be eligible to be receiving benefits if you live in the New York City tri-state area. Now here where it gets sticky, when you depend on governmental programs. And some people been 20 years, 30 years living under governmental programs. When they have, for example, they're a disability and they stay home and collect a check, or they're on food stamps, and whether they're having the governmental programs pay their rent. Now, let me read this article. I have a few more articles to read, but nearly 8K New York City households could lose rent aid as federal programs run out of money. So now federal programs could run out of money and they can lose for years. Like I said before, people have been on housing governmental assistance for years. And now Trump is in office, and now they run the risk of losing money to fund their homes, to fund their apartment, living in their apartment buildings. They may lose their benefits, and that's paid. And that's people, like I said before, people have been paying $100 per month to live because of the governmental assistance programs that they're in. They've been paying $100 a month, and just living like that, paying $100 a month, or a little bit more than that, just living. While the rest of hardworking Americans pay high rent, especially in New York City and places like California, or Florida, paying high rent and not catching a break. But and it says Valet Rose says she's worried about the end of the federal emergency housing voucher program at her apartment in bed in Town on March 24th, 2025. Worried about it. Worried about it. That's why it's not good to depend on these governmental programs, because when you depend on them, when a new regime is in town, they can just pull it like that. Now, what you gonna do? Now where you're at. When they pull the beneficial, like, voucher programs from you, you have no backing. You didn't prepare for that because you was living comfortably. Stop depending on man. Learn how to make money on your own. Learn how to struggle to find a way to make income for yourself and for your family, and stop depending on the government to cover you for everything. Depend on the Lord. Now here's an article that I want to share with you. Story about Bell. Bell, who is now 47 years old, said he and his daughter received a blessing in 2021 in the form of a federally funded rental voucher. It helped them afford an apartment in the East New York, that's in Brooklyn, after 2 years of stalled housing searches and allowed them to leave the shelter system. That was a blessing. But now the housing may be in jeopardy at a time when the city faces a severe affordable housing crunch and a record high rents. So it was a blessing at the time in 2021. And it's people like Bell that get these benefits, they get the vouchers and everything because they're federally funded by the government, and it's a benefit. But now there's a new regime in town. Trump is in town, new regime, and because they don't have because of what went on in the era of 2020, between 2020 and 21 with COVID and certain situations, they run out of funding, and all of a sudden now, Bella's facing dilemmas. Bella's it's scary. It's scary. This is what happens when you solely depend on governmental assistance programs. I'm a big advocate of leaning on God and letting God show you a way how to accumulate money and how to in the wise way to move is to not depend on these governmental programs. Don't, because when a new regime is in town, things change and it can affect you and it can affect your loved ones. So make sure that you find a way, whether you have to go to trade school, maybe whether you want to, I know it's a lot of money, or whether you want to, when you get the income tax money, you fund it towards an online business that can possibly help you out a little bit, or I hate to say it, but maybe try to make a second income, maybe hustle Uber or something like that to don't depend on these governmental programs because when a new regime is in town, they can solely disappoint you because it is rough when you just solely depend on that. And this is a continuation of the article of the story on Bell. Bell and his daughter are among the roughly 7,700 New York City households facing the likely loss of rental assistance and a potential return to homelessness. After the Trump administration announced a pandemic era aid program was nearly cut out of cash. The next and final batch of funds for the Federal Emergency Housing Voucher Program will cover payments through the rest of the year, but the program will end 4 years ahead of schedule, according to the officials. Now, this is what happens, man. Ben and his daughter had a blessing back in 2021 when it came true. And then now they may be facing some homelessness because the federal government is running out of funding. This is why I'm a big advocate of not depending on people, but depend on the Lord. This is what I'm trying to come across. Stop depending on these programs, these benefits. They're good when you have them, but when you solely depend on that, it gets disappointing because when man changes, God never changes, and man is meant to disappoint you all the time. And it's scary because they may be facing homelessness again. Let's turn to a scripture. First Thessalonians chapter 4, verses 12. So that your daily life will win the respect of the outsiders, so that you may not be dependent on no one. It's good. When you're a follower of Christ, it's not good you're not going to depend on no. You depend on God. And it's not good to solely depend on people for your well-being. Just solely depend on these governmental programs to cover you because things do change. Things change. But it happens a year, 2 years from now, 5 years from now, and you just gotta change. You just gotta reinvent yourself, learn something new, maybe do a little investment into something here and there, taking time to learn something new, then eventually get your family out of this situation or get yourself out of this situation.
Elon Musk, he got it set up where if you don't pay your car note on your Tesla, it has a self repo button. You get up in the morning and walk outside and step on the porch. That Tesla goes say, going home. Elon Musk.
Yeah, that was Rick Ross, rapper Rick Ross. I'm a big advocate of not financing. I don't believe in. I don't like financing. I don't believe in financing. This is what I feel about financing. If I can't buy it off, that means I can't afford it. I don't want to pay anything monthly. I'm paying rent or I'm paying a mortgage, plus I have to pay a car note, a monthly payment. And Tesla vehicles are expensive, man. Very, 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 very expensive. And what people do is they borrow somebody else's money, max out their credit card, or they finance the vehicles, finance it, and they finance the vehicle, realizing as time goes on that they can't keep up with the payments. Can't keep up with the payments, and the car wind up getting repo. Now, Rick Ross is saying that car, that the Tesla car, man, not paying that car note, the car will drive off and go back to the business car dealership. You don't even have to press a button for the ignition to get turned on and drive itself back to the dealership. Don't believe in car notes. If you could avoid a car note and possibly buy a car off, I know some people can't do it because they're not making that type of money or just don't have it. If you could afford the car, if you could avoid paying car notes, do it. What the Bible says, the borrower is a slave to the lender. You always paying that car note. By the time you finish paying that car note, you paid more than what the vehicle is worth. Because when cars pull out the lot, they lose value automatically. Most people know that. And the truth of the matter is that if you could avoid paying that car note, avoid having a car note, avoid having a car note, then avoid it.
1983, I was up in a meeting with my few staff and we're praying. And the Lord said to me from Psalm 34, verse 5, my son, you have two eyes. I said, yes. Can you make one to look up and one to look down? And I tried, it didn't work. He said, anytime you are looking unto man, never claim to be looking unto me. But they looked unto him and they were lightened and their faces were no more ashamed. Very graphic picture. That was where I came by the law of absolute dependency on God. Looking at no man for any help, including myself. God has given us a blessed ministry, but I am not the sponsor of that ministry. So I sleep like a baby. I'm not the sponsor. I have no worries of any kind on that ministry forever.
Yes, and Bishop Oyedipo said it best. I depend on the Lord. I don't look. My eyes don't turn up. My eyes don't go down. I can't do it at the same time. So why do I have to depend on man and man can fail me? Why not depend on the Lord and lean on God and trust the Lord to just carry you through? Because when you solely depend on man, man has a way of disappointing you or letting you down. So trust God and let the word of God be a roadmap to your life. And stop leaning and trusting and depending on just people to carry you through.
This is what you're going to do to get approved for SNAP benefits in 2025. If you're new here, my name is Crystal. I am a social worker and a caseworker. I have been working in the social service field for over 10 years. I've also worked at the SNAP Food Stamp Welfare Public Aid Office for over 6 years. I have processed hundreds of SNAP cases. This is what you're going to do to get approved for SNAP benefits in 2025. Number one, you can't be scared to submit an application. I know that seems like a no-brainer, but a lot of people in the comment section, as well as people that I meet with when I do my one-on-ones, are afraid to apply because they think they're going to get denied. The only way to be sure if you're eligible is to submit the application. That's the only way. Worst thing that they can say is no. But if you're in need of these benefits and you think that you might be eligible, you need to go ahead and submit an application. The worst that they can say is no. Number two, you need to understand that SNAP is an income versus expenses game. That means the two main factors that is going to determine if you're eligible for these benefits is your income versus your expenses. I know a lot of people like to think that if you report random things that may increase your chances of becoming eligible for these benefits, but I'm telling you it does not. There are many people who are homeless, but they earn too much to receive SNAP benefits. So you being homeless alone is not enough to get you approved. What will get you approved is if your income is under the income standard for your household to be approved. So even if you report to be homeless, if your income is over the standard, you still won't get approved. So just keep that in mind. Number three, you need to understand that overtime is considered income. A lot of times people come in with overtime pay on their pay stubs and they get upset that overtime is being counted as their income. But as long as the overtime is on your pay stub, we do have to use that as income because it is income. So just know when you come into the office to apply, if there's overtime on your pay stub, we're going to have to put in exactly what the pay stub says. And number four, if you apply and you're denied, you need to appeal that decision. I've seen many times where someone would come in and apply for SNAP benefits, they will get denied, they will file an appeal, and they will win the appeal. Now, you're only going to win the appeal if the caseworker who processed your case made a mistake. But it's possible because I've seen this happen many times. Because the people who are processing your case are only human, we make mistakes. So I would submit an appeal just in case. And you probably want to do that as soon as possible because you only have about 60 days after your denial letter for SNAP to submit the appeal. So if you guys have any questions about any of these, feel free to let me know, and I hope this helped. This is what
And that was Krista, the social worker, explaining the SNAP program. When you apply for the SNAP program and in New York City, when you apply for the SNAP program, and the SNAP program is supposed to help people with groceries, help less people less fortunate with groceries and stuff like that. And Krista is saying, even when you apply, there's people that are eligible. There's people that have all the requirements and they still get denied. Still get denied. And she's telling you, even if you get denied, try to appeal it. And they still get denied. But my thing is with SNAP, because the same SNAP program was the one that was giving it to the migrants. It was, and SNAP, once you have SNAP, you have at least on your benefit card, you have at least, to believe, $500 on your benefit card just for groceries alone. That's good for a lot of families. That's very good. But let me tell you something, SNAP, it is hard to get approved. You gotta really show show that you really are in need of a governmental assistance program. It's one thing to apply, but it's not guaranteed that you're gonna get it. Not guaranteed that congratulations, you got SNAP. It's not easy to get it. And SNAP will help because SNAP covers all your grocery bills. So you have to worry about pushing your pocket for groceries every week. You can just use a benefit card that they give you, whether it's $500 or $1,000 on that benefit card, and just go food shopping, just strictly food shopping, and it's supposed to help. But let me tell you something. When you wait on that line or take that ticket, and it's a long application you got to fill out because they go into detail and ask you all these questions, and then when you finally finish filling out the application, now you got to set up an appointment because they give you a phone number and Snap, and they give you like a code. You got to call the reference number, so you got to call to when you once you set the appointment, they interview on the phone, and now you gotta wait and do all that preparation, do it right, do everything right, and still don't get SNAP. Now the live word of the day is coming out of Proverbs 3 verses 5. Trust in the Lord in all your heart. Lean not on your own understanding. So God is telling you today to trust in Him. Don't trust in the government. Don't trust in man. Stop trusting in man. Stop trusting in them. Stop trusting in these governmental programs to cover you and just solely dependent on that. God is telling you to step out in faith and to trust in Him. Trust in Him. Yes, if once you trust in Him, more doors will be opening to you, and you'll be able to, because you trust in God, He'll be able to protect you and cover over you, so you'll be able to feed your family and He'll provide for you. But this is Zaccheus with another live word of the day. God bless and be safe. And if you like what I shared, smash that like button. Also, subscribe to my channel, Zaccheus Gospel. I got more coming for you. Peace and blessings. Until next time.